My name is Marion Keaton. I'm 67 years old. I used to think I knew Boston by heart, the rhythm of the subway, the faint salt from the harbor, the squeal of brakes echoing off the tunnels. But that morning, the city felt foreign. My stomach had been cramping since dawn, sharp little twists that came and went like tides. I told myself it was just the cold air, or maybe the coffee I shouldn't have had. Evan insisted I come along anyway. He and Tara were headed to Copley to meet a realtor, and he thought the walk would do me good. We boarded the Green Line just before 9. The car was packed shoulders, winter coats, the smell of wet wool. I gripped the metal pole and tried to breathe through another pulse of pain. Evan stood beside me, checking his phone. Tara was already sighing about the crowd. When the train lurched forward, I nearly lost my balance. A young man in a college sweatshirt noticed. He stood, gesturing at his seat. "Ma'am, please." Gratitude caught in my throat. "That's kind of you," I said, lowering myself carefully, easing the weight off my spine. For a brief moment, the pain dulled. I closed my eyes, just to steady myself. Then Evan's hand closed around my arm. "Mom, are you okay?" "She's standing over there," he murmured, concern lacing his tone. I blinked up at him. Evan, I'm fine right here." Tara's voice cut in, tight and sharp. "Really? She can stay if she wants to." Her words tried to soothe, but her eyes said otherwise. Evan's grip tightened. "Come on, Mom. Don't make this awkward." For a moment, the world tilted not from the train, but from disbelief. I looked around. The young man who'd given up his seat had gone still, one hand on the rail, unsure where to look. A woman across the aisle pressed her lips together. The pain in my stomach spiked. I pushed myself up slowly, my knees trembling. The cold metal bit into my palm as I steadied myself. Tara slipped into the seat with a relieved sigh. "Thank you, honey," she said to Evan. "Not to me." The car went quiet in that way only public spaces can silence that hums, thick and heavy. I felt my face flush hot against the chill air. My son's hand dropped from my arm, but the imprint of it stayed. From somewhere near the door, an older woman's voice broke the stillness. Soft, but clear. "God sees everything." No one replied. The words hung in the air like dust in sunlight, settling on all of us. When the train slowed for the next stop, I shifted my weight, gripping the pole with both hands. The ache in my abdomen was sharper now, deeper. I watched my reflection in the window, gray hair, pale face. A woman pretending she wasn't shaking. At Arlington, the doors opened with a hiss. I stepped out first. Evan called after me, something about meeting later for lunch, but the tunnel swallowed his voice. Outside, the air smelled like iron and winter. I pressed a hand against my stomach and started walking toward the light. By the time I reached home, my stomach was a small storm under my ribs. Every movement felt like stirring something that didn't want to be touched. I changed into my robe, boiled water for tea, and tried to calm myself with the sound of the kettle. Evan and Tara came in not long after. Their voices filled the apartment like a draft. Tara laughing about a restaurant she wanted to try. Evan half listening, half scrolling on his phone. I was sitting at the kitchen table, breathing through another wave of cramps. Neither of them seemed to notice. "Mom, you didn't eat yet," Evan asked absently. "I'm not hungry," I said. "I just need to rest." He nodded, already looking past me. "We'll order takeout. You want anything?" I shook my head. The smell of garlic and fried oil that followed made the nausea worse. I went to my room, closed the door, and lay on my side, pressing a hand to my stomach. Sometime after midnight, the pain turned mean. It wasn't a cramp anymore, it was a knife twisting. Sweat slicked my neck. I tried to call Evan, but my voice came out as a whisper. In the end, it was the neighbor. Mrs. Larkin, who heard me through the thin wall. She knocked once, then opened the door when I didn't answer. "Marion, you're white as paper," she said, dialing 911 before I could argue. The ambulance ride was a blur of lights and antiseptic. At the ER, they ran tests, pressed cold instruments to my skin. "Stress ulcer," the doctor said finally, frowning. "You've been under pressure, haven't you?" I wanted to laugh. Pressure had become air in my lungs. They kept me overnight for fluids and observation. Around 3 in the morning, I checked my phone. One missed call from Mrs. Larkin's number. A text from Evan blinked on the screen. "Everything okay?" I typed. "At the hospital." Then deleted it. The nurse adjusted the blanket, her movements brisk but kind. I turned toward the window where dawn was just a gray outline and whispered to no one, "It's going to stop, one way or another." When Richard died, the house felt like a hollow instrument. Every sound carried too far. Every silence rang. Evan came home the next day, suitcase in hand, his arm around Tara. "Just for a few weeks. Mom," he said, "until we figure out where to go next." A few weeks turned into a year. I told myself it was comfort, having someone in the kitchen again, hearing a voice on the stairs. Tara was polite at first, always offering to help with dishes, bringing flowers from the corner market. She called me Mom, and for a while, I let her. It sounded kind, but kindness has an expiration date when people start mistaking your house for theirs. It began small couch cushions rearranged, mugs moved, little signs that the apartment was no longer only mine. Tara called it modernizing, as if my groceries were an embarrassment. Evan followed her rhythm easily. He was softer than his father, too eager to keep peace. I saw how he leaned toward whoever raised their voice first. When Tara suggested repainting the living room for a fresher look, he looked at me as if asking permission to breathe. I gave it. The furniture shifted next. My grandmother's cedar chest ended up in the storage unit to make room for their media console. One afternoon, I came home from the library to find the family photos boxed neatly on the dining table. Tara smiled. "We'll put them back once we've chosen better frames," she said. They never returned to the walls. I wanted to protest, but grief made me polite. I told myself they were young, that adjusting to life together was hard. I repeated that word together as though saying it enough times would make me part of it. By the time I noticed how little of the house still looked like mine, it was too late. They had their keys, their routines, their friends dropping by unannounced. I was a guest in the place Richard and I had built from scratch 40 years ago. And yet, whenever I thought of asking them to leave, I remembered the night Evan called after the funeral. "I just don't want you alone," he said. I'd clung to those words like a promise. Now, lying in a hospital bed with antiseptic air in my lungs, I understood the truth beneath them. He hadn't wanted me alone. He just hadn't wanted to feel responsible for my grief. That, I realized, was the start of everything that followed. I came home from the hospital with a paper bag of prescriptions and a warning to avoid stress. The nurse had said it gently, as if that were something anyone could choose. The apartment was orderly, almost too perfect, hiding the subtle changes they'd made while I was away. My reading lamp had moved. The framed photo of Richard was gone from the mantel. Tara emerged from the kitchen, her smile practiced. "You're back. We cleaned up while you were gone. Thought you'd want a fresh start." I murmured thanks, though the words sat bitter in my mouth. Evan came in from the balcony, phone in hand, his voice bright with performance. "How's the ulcer?" "Mom, feeling better. Better enough to notice things," I said, placing the paper bag on the table. My tone surprised even me, steady. Without apology, they exchanged a look. A private conversation made of raised brows and sighs. Then Tara spoke again, too casually. "We met with the realtor today, just exploring options. You know Boston's market is crazy right now. If we sell in spring, we could all start fresh somewhere quieter. I froze. The sound of the refrigerator hummed behind her words. Sell, I repeated. It's just an idea, Evan added quickly. Don't get upset. The muscles in my hand tightened around the chair. My name was still on every document in this house. Richard had made sure of it. They didn't know that I'd found the folder in the drawer by my bed the night before. The deed neatly folded beside our marriage certificate. I looked at them both, their youth, their certainty, and felt something shift inside me. Fear? Yes, but not the paralyzing kind. It was the cold, clear sort that turns into decision. I excused myself, went to my room, and locked the door. For the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. The city murmured beyond the window, steady and indifferent. Somewhere below, the train tracks shuddered as another car passed, carrying strangers toward places that still belonged to them. The next morning, I took the folder from the drawer and slipped it into my bag. The edges were soft from years of handling Richard's handwriting on the corner label, still neat and deliberate. I hadn't told Evan or Tara I was leaving. I only left a note on the counter that said, "Doctor's appointment, outside." I wrapped my coat tighter against the cold Boston wind and took the bus to Jamaica Plain. Arriving at the small brick building that housed the Senior Resource Center, a woman at the front desk pointed me to a cramped office where a nameplate read, Ruth Delgado, paralegal. She looked to be in her 40s, calm eyes behind dark-rimmed glasses, her voice low and unhurried. "Tell me what's going on," she said. I told her everything, how Evan and Tara had moved in, how they'd taken over, the talk of selling the condo. My voice shook only once. When I said the word sell, Ruth listened without interrupting, then leaned forward. "The property is in your name, correct?" "Yes. It was my husband's, and then mine." "Then no one can sell it without your consent. They're tenants at will. If you want them out, you can issue notice. You have rights." Marion, the word rights sounded foreign. I had been operating on obligations so long I'd forgotten the other language. Ruth helped me list what I needed: deed copies, tax receipts, proof of residency, household bills in my name. "Don't confront them yet," she advised. "Gather first. Preparation is protection." When I left her office, the folder in my bag felt heavier but steadier in my hands. I stopped at a cafe, ordered tea, and spread the papers across the table. My name appeared again and again on envelopes, statements, signatures. It was a quiet kind of evidence, the kind that didn't shout but couldn't be erased. I refolded each page carefully, tucking them into new order. By the time I stepped back into the wind, I realized I was no longer walking to escape. I was walking toward something. Chapter 6. Lines on the floor. 2 days later, I asked them to sit with me after dinner. The living room smelled faintly of lemon polish, the candle Richard once liked flickering on the table. Evan looked uneasy. Tara crossed her arms. "I've been thinking," I began. "This house needs to change." Tara sighed. "Here we go again. It's simple," I said. "The shared account is closed. The bills are in my name, and I'll handle them. If you want to stay until March, you'll contribute to groceries and utilities through your own account or cash, arranged in writing." Tara laughed sharply. "You're unbelievable. We've kept this place running." I met her gaze. "I know exactly who's been paying for what. This isn't a debate." Evan rubbed his forehead. "Mom, maybe we can talk later." "No," I said, calm but final. "Later is what caused this. You'll need your own place by March 1st. The silence that followed was heavy. Tara pushed her chair back and stormed off, muttering. Evan stayed a moment longer, his voice low. "You really mean it?" "Yes," I said. "I want peace in my own home." He nodded slowly, eyes on the floor. "Okay, Mom." When he left, I stayed where I was, Hands wrapped around my mug, the heat steady against my palms. The candle burned low, its small flame tracing the invisible line I had drawn, one they could no longer cross. The 1st of March came with sleet streaking the windows and a sky the color of pewter. I woke early, brewed coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my folder open beside me. The deed, the receipts, the notice all lined up like quiet witnesses. I didn't expect gratitude. I only wanted the leaving to be simple. Evan and Tara had spent the week packing in bursts of anger. Boxes appeared and disappeared, stacked unevenly in the hallway. They spoke to each other in sharp whispers that stopped when I entered the room. By noon, only the bedroom remained. I heard drawers slam, the scrape of hangers. When I walked past the doorway, Tara's voice sliced through the air. "You're getting exactly what you wanted. Marion, hope you enjoy your perfect little museum." I stopped in the hall. "Tara, I never asked for this. I just asked for space." She turned, hair falling over her face, eyes bright with fury. "Space. You've had nothing but space. You couldn't stand us being here because it made you feel small." Evan appeared behind her, carrying a box. "Let's not—" "No," she snapped. "She treats us like freeloaders." I folded my hands in front of me. "I've never said that. You didn't have to," she said, stepping closer. "You made it clear every single day. The looks, the little sighs. You think this place belongs to you alone." "It does," I said quietly. Her face went pale, then red. "You selfish old," Evan's voice cracked through her words. "Tara." Enough. But she was already moving toward me, one hand reaching for the keys on the hook by the door, as if to leave but still confront me. "Give me those," she said. I didn't move. "They're staying here." She lunged, brushing my shoulder. The jolt sent a sharp pain up my arm, but I stayed seated on the chair by the entryway, gripping the armrest to keep from rising. For the first time in months, I refused to stand on anyone's demand. "I'm calling building security," I said calmly. Reaching for my phone, Evan's voice broke again, somewhere between pleading and panic. "Tara, please stop." The doorbell rang before I finished dialing. 2 security officers from the front desk stood there, snow melting from their coats. "We had a noise complaint," one said. I gestured toward the boxes. "They're leaving." The taller officer nodded, his gaze taking in the scene, the keys clutched in Tara's fist, the tears she wouldn't let fall. Evan's bowed head. "Let's keep this civil," he said. Within minutes, the elevator doors closed on them both, the echo fading down the hall. I sat back in the chair, listening to the radiator hiss, the steady hum of a home breathing again. My hands were steady. The quiet that followed didn't feel empty, it felt earned. The lines I'd drawn had held, and for the first time in years, no one was standing over me. Chapter 8. The Healing Hours. Weeks passed. Soft and ordinary. The apartment settled into its own rhythm again, the click of the kettle, the hum of the radiator, the shuffle of mail under the door. I began to move slower, not from age this time, but from choice. Each morning, I brewed coffee and opened the curtains wide. Light touched corners I hadn't noticed in years. The stomach pain faded until it became a memory, not a warning. I started therapy through the senior center downtown, meeting a quiet woman named Dana, who asked more with her silences than her words. Sometimes I told her about the house, about Evan's laugh when he was small, about the night Tara moved the family photos. Dana didn't rush to fix anything. She only said, "You've spent a lifetime taking care of others. Maybe this is the season for yourself." In the evenings, I read by the window until the streetlights came on. The city outside sounded different now, distant but kind, like a neighbor who finally learned to knock. The silence that filled my home no longer felt like absence. it felt like room to breathe. Chapter 9. Coffee on Boylston Street. It was a mild afternoon in early April when Evan called. His voice was hesitant, careful, as if testing a bridge that might not hold. "Can we talk? Just coffee." We met at a small cafe on Boylston Street, the kind with old wood tables and sunlight pooling across the floor. Evan looked older than I remembered, lines near his eyes, a weariness that didn't belong to youth. He stirred his coffee without drinking. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said finally, "for that day on the train, for everything that came after. I thought keeping peace was the same as keeping love. I was wrong." I listened, hands wrapped around my mug for warmth. There was no anger left in me, just a quiet ache. "You can't build peace by erasing someone else," I said. He nodded, blinking hard. "Tara's with her sister now. I'm trying to figure things out." I reached across the table, resting my hand briefly on his. "I hope you do." When we stood to leave, he hugged me. It was awkward, fragile. I let it happen, then walked back into the city's soft light, carrying both sorrow and relief in the same breath. Summer returned quietly, folding Boston in soft light and slower mornings. One afternoon, I boarded the Green Line again, the same route where everything had begun. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of rain. At the next stop, a young pregnant woman stepped in, clutching the pole, eyes tired but polite. No one moved. I rose before she could ask. "Here," I said. "Take my seat." She smiled, surprised. "Thank you, ma'am." I stood steadily, letting the gentle sway of the train move under me. The aches hadn't vanished, but they no longer controlled me. Outside, the river flashed silver between buildings, and the city hummed with its usual rhythm. When the woman looked up to smile again, I nodded and turned toward the window. The glass reflected both of us, her beginning, my peace. The train carried us forward, side by side, into the quiet that no longer hurt.